hope everyone enjoyed their lunch and was able to refresh your brains as we move on with another panel discussion. To talk about the evolving Philippine narrative, please welcome Leah Callan Butler of Emfarsis to facilitate the discussion. Joining her will be the team from Alpas Consultancy, a leading media consultancy in Manila, to show an example of how the narrative of crypto has changed in the Philippines in the last 2 years. May we please call on our Alpas team, Marzie Marzan, Duran, and Celina Durante.
Thank you so much for that kind introduction. So my name is Leah Callan Butler. I'm the director of Emfarsis. And I also write an opinion column for CoinDesk, which you might have checked out. I've written a fair bit about Axie in the Philippines. And today I'm joined by Marzie, Potts, and Celina from Alpas, and they're a PR agency here in the Philippines, which I've worked with a lot. And
yeah,
and for a while now. Actually, so I met Alpas back in the pandemic. I feel like you can't talk about Web3 in the Philippines without citing the pandemic. But they were just starting off the agency at that time. And casting back to that time, I don't think we ever could have imagined how big Web3 was going to get. We were talking, it would have been early 2021. How do we go out and help people understand this new idea of Web3 gaming guilds? I want to go back to that time, guys. What do you remember from then? What was it like? I think guilds are ubiquitous now. There's been thousands of them established in the Philippines. Everyone knows what it's all about. Everyone's heard of Axie, but it wasn't like that back then. So how hard was it back in those early days?
Okay, I'll start. So actually, when we were trying to get this account with YGG, it was very challenging because I myself, I do not know anything. Actually, the first thing that I saw was your documentary on Axie Infinity, and that was the only thing that I was able to chew on and learn about Axie Infinity. So it was very lucky that we have Potts with us. He's an OG crypto dabbler since 2015. And the first thing we did was really to educate ourselves. Because for PR, you cannot tell a story which you do not understand. So we had to educate, read a lot. We saw a lot of documentaries. And then eventually that was the turning point wherein we thought that it would be best also to educate the media. So we started really with educating ourselves and educating the media. Do you want to add, guys?
Yeah. For me, I was very excited because as an Axie player and you guys entering the Philippines and actually experiencing the community and really growing the stories of the Filipinos through cryptocurrency and with the Axie, as I said. Yeah, it's very exciting.
I do think, though, I just want to add there, because, crypto can be difficult enough to explain as it is. And suddenly we're going out to people and talking about all these concepts on top of crypto. It was like, it's not just crypto, but it's also NFTs, and it's also games, and it's also guilds, and it's also scholarships. And, for the media, that was kind of hard. Like, what was some of the conversations that you were having with journalists, like, back in those days?
I remember when we first started that engagement with YGG, they often lumped together YGG, Axie, and Play to Earn. Like, they all thought it was just one thing. So we felt that it was really important to have that media education session just so we can also really define what these entities are, what these terms are. It also helped us a lot to understand the space. And we also built that relationship with media from that on, and then we guided them all throughout, just so we keep them updated with what's new, especially with Web3. It's always changing.
Yeah, absolutely. So obviously we know that was a total success. The play-to-earn story really took off. Everyone was talking about it. And it really put the Philippines on the map, not just in terms of adoption, because everyone wanted to play this game, but for innovation as well. So guilds like YGG and others that had started up and raised capital, and then many other innovations that had come after that as part of the Web3 movement, like Breeder DAO, XLD Finance, Metaverse Go, all of them are here today. But the key thing about that was kind of unheard of. Right? Like, I think within this region, a lot of the capital, it tends to flow to other countries, Singapore, Japan, even Vietnam, it has a great brand for dev talent. And the talent, too, tends to go to those other countries. So how significant was it that this media story started playing out on a global stage and really turned heads to finally look at the Philippines?
Right. I think it's very important because I think it put us on the map that Filipinos craves for innovation when there's a need presented. So I think we saw this with the start of the pandemic with GCash, with cashless transactions. And we saw this last year with Axie Infinity because I think essentially we were entering that our second lockdown and Filipinos were essentially bored and we had a lot of time, we had cell phones available, and we have internet connection. So what Axie Infinity brought us was an opportunity at a very difficult time.
To add to what Pot said, I think it also made investors think that, hey, there's actually potential in the Philippines. Why don't we go there, right? Also, with that, as a result, could be more employment opportunities for us, more income opportunities. But even just here at home, I think it's also important that we Filipinos finally realize that Web3 can be used to address gut issues here. So I think that's very important because there's hope in that.
Yeah, for sure. We are in a very different place now, though. So, throughout 2021, I think all the stories were full of hope and optimism. It was very much about saving the world. We've solved poverty with a video game, and people really fell in love with that idea. But then the narrative changed, and I was wondering what you think about that. Why did it change? What actually happened? Do you think that the scrutiny was fair on this industry? And what does it look like going forward?
I think the start of June and July of 2021, that was where media started to pick up Play to Earn and Axie Infinity. And remember, I think it was July 2022. July 22nd or 23rd, wherein SLP reached 17 pesos. And everyone was very happy. And financial KOLs, Filipino financial KOLs, started to talk about the Play to Earn system. And that's where the turning point started, right? And come August, a certain media agency, media outlet, interviewed an Axie player, and that player shared.
I remember this
that one.
And he shared that through his SLP earnings, he bought a house and a car, and the comment section went wild because they were questioning him and they were calling him out because of that specific news story. Government agencies and regulating bodies will start to question what this specific industry is.
Maybe just for context, us Filipinos, we really love to play games. And it was amazing that you can earn while playing games, right? During the pandemic, a lot of people thought that playing Axie would be a substitute for as their only source of income. And they were just banking on playing during the pandemic, it was enough. But right now, we realize that, the world has opened up and there's an opportunity already to augment your income, but also by finding other sources as well. So I think we need to be able to control that narrative and say, yeah, you can play and earn, but maybe, not consider Axie as your only source of income at this point.
Yeah, because we are in a crypto winter now, I would say, So how is the media interpreting the stories that are coming out now? Because, from my perspective, people are still building, VCs are still investing. There's a lot of really good stuff happening in the market, but are those threads actually getting through? Like, how is it being interpreted, I guess, from a public perspective now?
We notice, though, right now that media coverage is polarizing. So there are people who, of course, are very skeptical of what's happening in crypto. They've been skeptical since the start, and now that they see that it's the bear market, they feel vindicated, I guess. And then there are other people, or other publications who just really want to see it in an objective lens. So I think it really depends on the level of understanding of the media. If they really know this space, then they're really looking at it in a more discerning manner and covering it in such a way. But for those who have their own agenda already, then I think it's also, I guess we can do that extra mile to help change that narrative for them.
We do see a lot of sensationalism, a lot of FUD, stands for fear, uncertainty, and doubt, particularly when the market is down. And you guys don't just have crypto and Web3 clients, you've got other industries too. Like, is this unique to crypto, or do you see it everywhere? Like, particularly the way, macro is at the moment. We've got wars going on, all sorts of things. Like, is it just us, or do other people get this too?
Definitely not. So I've been working on crisis for the past 5-6 years already. And, no one is immune with issues or crisis. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. So you have to be prepared already. So that's what we tell all of our clients. So if you think your industry is safe from issues or crisis right now, well, in 5 to 10 months, there's a new regulation, there's a social media post, there's a complaint from a customer. So you really don't know anymore when this issue or crisis will happen. So definitely no one is immune to issues right now.
What about on social media? Because, I would extend on that. I think in terms of communications, the way these projects are perceived, it is certainly not about traditional media only for crypto. And in fact, as we've seen over the past week, a lot of the biggest stories in the world actually unfold on Twitter.
Yeah.
It doesn't even, there's no press release, the media finds out from Twitter. So, Potts, I know you're a social media specialist. Can you just explain a little bit about how that is changing communications, and maybe if you have tips as well in terms of what some of the founders here need to be thinking about?
Right, correct. All right. So for the Philippines, basically Facebook is built for your family and for your friends. And for Twitter, it's basically made for yourself. So you see accounts that are made just specifically for standing, right? So this is a space wherein you can properly communicate what you need, especially what Marzie said earlier, that we need to be prepared on whatever happens, whether if it's good or bad.
Do you think, though, I would argue actually that like social media, it's kind of bleeding outside our friends and family networks, right? Like, I think a lot of people are getting their news from there. I guess this is a forward-thinking question, but do you think that social media could actually be more dominant some days? In the future, in terms of how these public narratives play out?
Versus traditional news?
Yeah.
I think it goes hand in hand. I think for crypto news, you have this niche following already that understand the blockchain, and you have traditional media wherein it has a better, wider market or wider audience.
Yeah, maybe just to add to that, you notice all of the titles, publications, they are on social. And what we notice is that for many Filipinos, when we see stories on social, we don't just read it, we share them. We have different Telegram groups, Viber groups. So it spreads faster because we really want to be able to spread this information to as many people as we can. So yeah, we've noticed that a lot of the issues and crises are really born on social media, and that's where everything happens nowadays, so yeah.
Yeah, so I guess we've only got 5 minutes left. Just another one on Twitter though, actually on Facebook, because one of the things that I learned when I first arrived in the Philippines in 2018, my life got a lot easier when I realized that everybody is on Facebook.
Yeah.
Like everything is on Facebook. Like even I couldn't find things on Google. There were no websites for the services I needed. But as soon as I started searching Facebook, it was all there. So like if we've got, say, international people who might be thinking about launching a project in the Philippines, like how important is it to think about Facebook here as part of your strategy? And is it even more important than, say, other places in the world?
I think it's still important here, especially since Facebook is actually the #1 platform here. So yeah, everyone is on Facebook here. A lot of people, if they want to look at an establishment or a company, if it's existing, if it actually exists, or if it's credible enough, they either go to Google first, Google the website, and then go to Facebook. So yeah, if you want to start a company here, I think that it's essential to have a Facebook account.
Start with Facebook. All right, 2 more questions for you. So back to traditional media. I was hoping you could maybe just give us a little bit of the perspective of a journalist. Like what goes on in a journalist's mind? Because Web3, we already covered this, but it's really hard. It's so many different concepts all rolled into one. Like we just said before, it's crypto, it's NFTs. Now we've even got DAOs. We've got so many different use cases. Sometimes we even just make up words like Hodl and Waggy
Yeah.
and Safu,
Waggy.
like, you know.
LFG.
and journalists, they're not necessarily covering Web3 and crypto full time. Like they're trying to do
Correct.
all tech or all business or something. So what, maybe some practical advice for founders here if they want to connect with the media better and make sure that their story is heard properly.
Maybe I can start. So, hello to our media friends who are here. But a lot of journalists, of course, they churn out 5 to 6 stories in a day. So they hop from one event to another during the pandemic when everything was on Zoom. A lot of our media friends, they would be in 2 events at one time. So you have to understand also that if it's a very technical discussion, you have to laymanize everything. So all of these acronyms, they wouldn't know. You live and breathe all of these acronyms, but for them, it's the first time they're hearing it. So we always tell to our clients, please laymanize, tell a story, and that is what hooks. So it should always have a story. There has to be a strong narrative so that the media will be able to understand and pick up your story.
To add to that, I really think it's essential for everyone to have that relationship with them. So media will feel comfortable to ask, just ask you, what does this mean? What do you mean by this? Just for clarifications, so they know that whatever story they're covering, it's pretty accurate and they reflect what you actually want to say. Next is also, when we think of stories that we want to tell, especially here in Philippine media, it's important to always highlight, why is this story important in the market?
Yeah, I think you mentioned our Play to Earn documentary before, and personally, I think that's why it really impacted a lot of people, because it focused on the human story, the impact, rather than sort of overloading people with technical stuff and too much jargon. They were able to see how they could relate and why it would be relevant to their lives. So definitely think about storytelling in your narratives as well. Sadly, that is all we have time for, but I hope you guys could pick up some practical tips, and best of luck with your communications strategies for 2023.
Thank you
Thank
for
you very
having
much.
us.
Thank you,
Thank you
everyone.
so
Thank
much for
you.
having us.
Thank you so much, Leah Callan Butler, Marzie Marzan, Duran, and Celina Durante.